My career started in late 90s, and I worked in various organizations, both national, international, and also with UN agencies. I did an MA degree in gender studies.
I entered the media world in 2003. I was working at a newspaper, and then I set up another newspaper. 8 years down the line, I went on this mentoring program with Vital Voices, and I came back thinking, what can I do for women? There was nothing came up. But that same year, I got married.
I always felt a strong belief in women's rights, but it didn't hit me personally until I got married and I had my first child.
Through one of the workshops that Vital Voices had set up during that same year on policy advocacy, they asked a very simple question on the table. There was like Arab states were on different tables, and they asked just a very plain question for Jordan and the rest of the countries. So what are the challenges women are facing in your country? So there were like 10 women on the table, and they started sharing their challenges. And the common denominator was that when women get married and become mothers, they exit their career. And at that stage, I was like 34 years old. I had just gotten married, and I was at the peak of my career, or I was a director. And that just, struck me that, what do you mean? Why would she leave her career? Because we don't have a family-friendly work environment for women.
I was hospitalized for 2 months, and doctors didn't know what the cause was. And eventually the conclusion was that it was pure exhaustion. This was part of the silent struggle that every mother, every woman goes through, wanting to perfect everything, wanting to be a superwoman at everything. And sometimes it takes a toll because the pressure is huge.
And then there was a lawyer on the table, and I always say this story because if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have known, that said, hey, wait, there's an existing law, Article 72 of the labor law, that calls for the provision of daycare, where there's an organization that has 20 women or more with 10 kids under the age of 4.
I knew that there was a law that existed in Jordan that required companies, institutions to set up daycares on site. But I didn't know to what extent it was activated.
I was working in a media house that did not offer a family-friendly work environment, and I became the victim of the cause. How can a law that was written in the 90s be so, ignored and ineffective?
So together with a group of friends and colleagues, we gathered and we started to investigate. That time, we all shared the same story. We were either new mothers or mothers who had to quit their jobs, or who had to postpone marriage or postpone getting pregnant.
So we're like, where is that law? Why is it not activated? So it started with an inquiry, a question.
We decided to launch a campaign to expose this issue and to push the government to activate the law in 2010.
And it was called SADAQA. Every activity that we did was mirrored with a media exposure. We wanted to work with the officials. We wanted to work with the decision makers, with the government, the labor, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Social Development. We wanted to work hand in hand to activate this law. And then all the country was like Egypt, and all these countries were, political uprising. And here we are doing an awareness walk with the Ministry of Labor, which immediately attracted the media. A peaceful walk with a civil society organization and the government holding up yes to a family-friendly work environment. And there was a huge campaign around planting the seed in people's heads that this is an important thing for Jordan, for the long term, for the economy, for the growth, for the social economic work that we hope to, the development. Women are half the society, but we have one of the lowest in the world, yet 78% have higher education. So what did we do in the media? Through this fund, I had secured then that we do 10 segments on one of the private televisions. And that segment was paid. All of that 15 and 5 report was paid. That brought a lot of traction because we highlighted the sector, we highlighted our strategy, we were on a television, and we started to get interested donors and partners and civil society. Then we put together a committee and we said, hey, how about SADAQA sponsors? We had then our first little fund. We sponsor a little guidebook to help employers start up their daycares. And come 2014, they were on the front page of a newspaper that the government has launched in collaboration with SADAQA, the guidelines. Then we could work. That gave us leeway to work. And then we started to promote the booklet by speaking to the employers.
We said, okay, changing the narrative would be a byproduct if we focus on the 100 and at that time, I remember the number exactly, it was 162 companies that we targeted systematically. And these companies were situated in 5 major sectors that employed women the most in Jordan.
The financial, the education, the health sector, the industrial, and the telecom.
And these 162 companies employed 100 women and above.
We sat with them, we understood what their challenges are so we could answer them, how to get rid of those challenges. What are their intentions? Is it a personal challenge you don't want to spend, or is it something that you just don't know how to resolve? So we would understand them before we would be understood.
The pressure was exerted towards the private sector, but using the government as an ally. So that was our tactic.
For example, the banking sector, they have like 500 employees or 5,000, but 40% of them are in the form of branches. So some branches have 2 or 3 employees. You cannot do a daycare. What came out of that was the government needs to approve that we have a geographic friendly daycare to serve more than one branch of banks.
The trend was that we used to reach out to people, and now business owners are reaching out to us.
We did an extensive research, and people were willing to pay around $70 a month for daycare in order not to lose their job. And from that research, it was shown that a company could save up to $1 million if they did a daycare, 700,000 JDs. And that was a research, it was endorsed, we got an economist to do it.
What we started doing was the workshops for the different sectors. During these workshops, we explained a bit of why you should be opening a childcare in your workplace, the benefits that you'd be getting, how the mothers that are working at your firm or business would have less absentee days, would be more dedicated, they'll be more comfortable coming to work, therefore the productivity would be a lot, higher.
We used Nike to exert pressure on the factories in Jordan that they should follow and abide by labor law. And if they don't follow by labor law codes, the Nike would pull out the contracts with these factories. And we convinced Nike to put daycares as one of the criteria for assessing these factories. And we actually, they took us on a trip to Turkey to look at the facilities there and how they've managed to establish daycares on site in many of the factories around Istanbul. And we came back and convinced at least 3 garment factories to do the same, but we used the law
In the 90s, when this law was written, and I think it was 96, a working woman was a luxury. It wasn't a must. The fathers need the mothers to work because the burden on the father, that stereotype of the man of the house.
The caregiving in the family itself is not, it's not only the mother's job.
The law says 20 women, so we don't want to have them eliminate women or hire only men. So we were always cautious of that law that was in our face that they could lean on. It was very offensive to have, for us as women, working women, to say that the law was just for 20 women or more. So we went from SADAQA, a women-friendly work environment, to a family-friendly work environment. And the target was, the mountaintop target was to get rid of that gender reference.
So since 2013, we started the lobbying process vis-a-vis the Parliamentary Labour Committee in Parliament. So we convinced them that they should also adopt other amendments in the law. And so they took on our recommendation to amend Article 72. By the time 2019 came about, there was enough political will and enough pressure exerted in the past that it was easier for us to come up with the amendments.
And the highlight of the law, the equality in law, is that we were able, by lobbying with the parliamentarians, and we removed the 20 women gender word, we removed it from the law, just to be replaced by employees. Right after we established that daycares are public goods and a national priority, and we launched our national framework, what we did was a campaign called Aboui, which means my father, where we highlighted the role of fathers taking care of their children. And because we were working on the paternity leave for dads, article, I think it was 66, whereby we wanted to secure 3 days for dads, at least any holiday with his kid, paid. We needed to do it in a public place. So we said, hey, let's do it in the middle of the mall. We'll take shots of dads taking care of their kids. Inclusive. It was employed dads, it was young dads, old dads, disabled dads. And we put it in the middle of the mall. We did this like a gallery. And we had people looking and wondering. And all we did was we were fascinated by the reactions. Oh my God, that's my dad. My dad does that. And I would bring the child. What does your dad do? Tell me exactly. Do you want to say that on camera? And we would actually tell them, can you please take a photo with your child right here and tag us and say how you feel about these photos. So that was a living campaign.
We recruited men on board and we recruited fathers. So there were always fathers and men talking on behalf of SADAQA, on behalf of the need to establish daycares, on the need to balance work and family life, and that the structural barriers were the main impediments towards ensuring women and working families at large enjoy a stable life in Jordan. So we were also tactful in recruiting men on board. So when we started our advocacy back in 2013 and started talking about paternity leave, the whole idea was very foreign to people, and there was immediate resistance to the idea.
The same week or a week earlier, we got the bill passed. The bill had passed. It was like simultaneously. The pressure, we would go to the parliamentarians and stand in the middle of the parliament. Activists, they went down, they went and they just stood there, yes to parental leave, 3 days, give it to us. And at night we had this gallery. So it happened simultaneously. And that strategy showed that SADAQA was not all about women.
And one of the points that we stress is that we don't want stereotyping in the classrooms. We don't want the mom cooking at home and the dad sitting at the computer. We want the children to learn that they can be whoever they want to be, that the rules are not, gender divided.
SADAQA is my lifeline. It's my purpose.
In terms of quality, I think the best daycares in Jordan, not only institutional daycares, but in terms of the quality of care and education also.
It's just great seeing all these child care centers coming up, all the mentality changing, all the mothers becoming more, active.
We are, like they call it in Arabic, أهل القضية. We are the family of the cause. We are the people that needed this daycare. We are the moms, we are the dads, we are the people that couldn't go back to work after they had the child. So every single word we write is for the future generation that is to come, the mothers to be, and is for the people that don't believe in change, that we want to show them, and is for the people that want to do something for their country.